Carol. What wonderful words. And thanks, Pete, for your care and your concern for us and for allowing us to take over your church last night. Very much appreciated. And thank you to Beth and Don for all the beautiful flowers. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. Those words that Carol read, they're wonderful, aren't they? What wonderful words of hope. The book of Romans, well, it says many things, but this is one of the things it says. It talks about the inclusive love of God, and it's a story of hope for all people through the love, grace, and faith of Jesus Christ. How those who were not Jewish are brought into the covenant, included in the story. And this story is a story of scandalous grace and love. The book pivots around these words. Literally, nothing can separate us from the love of God. Not in this life, not death, or the life to come. So this is the God that Dad believes in. This is the God Dad told us about. The God who loves you, who thinks you're beautiful, who loves you, no ifs or buts. And Dad and I often talked about the amazing love of God and the scandalous nature of grace. These conversations were illuminated by my doctorate, and then the academic and theological book that followed. It's fair to say that the book was a niche piece, and I won't be able to retire on the royalties. But bless Dad, he had a go at reading it. I think he made it at least halfway. That love of God and that scandalous nature of grace. Dad embodied that. Dad embodied his faith. You see, Dad knew he was more than a conqueror through the God who loved him. Dad knew that not death, nor his stroke, or his physical disabilities, or anything else would separate him from that amazing love of God. Dad embodied that hope. And as Abs already said earlier, he was not afraid of dying. Wow. The memories of Dad's love for the sea and the ocean I shared earlier have been passed on to me. And I have a couple of friends of a similar age to me, and we surf together regularly. Now that might sound quite cool, but to be honest, it's more like last of the summer wine. And with those friends, I chatted about Dad's death as we bobbed around in the ocean waiting for the sets to come. About what these last couple of weeks have been like. I said they've been difficult, actually. Really difficult. But also full of laughter, full of deep joy in the fullness of that word. And they've been filled with hope. And as we shared those stories about Dad, we've told stories to one another. We've remembered Dad. And as Abs mentioned, that night that Dad died, when Mum and Mike and Abs and I were gathered round the end of Dad's bed, that was an incredible moment. I'm not sure if Dad could hear us, but I bet if he could, he would have been laughing. And I love what Gabriella said. That Papa, or Dad, was dancing with the angels. Love that. Love that. So what has Dad taught me? Well, how do you sum that up? But this is one of the things he's taught me, was how to live well under immense physical difficulties. Seeing Dad in the hospital that night showed me how you die well too. That's quite a thing, isn't it? Quite a thing. How to die well. You see, when people suffer, like Dad did, you see what their character is like. When they're under pressure and they have enormous physical disabilities, you see what that character is really like. And of course, Dad wasn't perfect, but Dad never complained. He was stoic in the enduring sense of that word. And as I reflect on Dad's death, gosh, grief and loss are hard, aren't they? There are some things that just catch you out. There are some things that surprise you. Like when my alarm went to remind me to ring him. I will really miss our conversations. His love, his care, his interest in Caroline, asking about Dan, asking about Lydia, asking if I'd been for a surf. I usually had. But he loved hearing about which beach I'd been to, what the weather was like, what it was like. But the hope Dad embodied was that nothing can separate us from the love of God that is in Jesus, that those wonderful words of Romans talk about. And as I say, looking at how Dad died has taken the fear out of death for me too. It's a life well lived, a life celebrated and remembered, and a life that will be missed. I'm going to finish by reading these last words from that hymn we just sung. When you stop and pause and think about it, they sum up those words from Romans. Changed from glory into glory, till in heaven we take our place, till we cast our crowns before thee, lost in wonder, love and praise. Thank you, Dad. Rest well.